Hello, Matt Williamson here at Williamson NFL. Bring you part 3 of my in-depth Steeler defensive analysis. Got a lot of good responses from you guys on the first 2, as with the 3-part offensive one from last week. Happy Super Bowl week to all. I'm not really going to touch on that. I got the Chiefs winning a close one. But let's dig right in here. The Steelers' 98.7 rushing yards allowed per game was 6th best, and 4.1 carry was 4th best. And obviously that's despite some rough outings, late in the season with Derrick Henry, et cetera, et cetera. But when it's all said and done over the course of a 17-game season, contrary to popular belief, their run defense was certainly a plus. Now, does that mean it's perfect? No. I think they absolutely could use a nose tackle and move Benton over, but let's not ignore some facts here over the course of an entire regular season. They also only allowed 43 runs of 10 or more yards. That was 6th best. And overall, it's a pretty good tackling defense, guys. They only allowed 2 touchdowns on 10 or more yard runs. 3 defenses allowed 1, and no defenses allowed 0. So they were near the top of the league in terms of explosive touchdowns allowed on the ground. Their 1.17 average rushing yards allowed before first contact. Before first contact, 8th best. Pretty good. Really good. Just over 51% of their rushing attempts the Steelers faced were between the tackles. That was 4th highest. That's another reason to start thinking about a nose. That teams, and a lot of that, I'm sure, was getting Steelers in nickel, attacking up the middle with Roberts off the field, Benton off the field. But even so, as I mentioned in the first 2 parts of this series, that when you start digging in these numbers, you can start to figure out what really smart NFL coordinators do to attack the Steelers. So, when you start seeing really strong trends like that, like the 4th highest amount of interior runs, well, you realize where your smart opponents think your weakness is at. Pittsburgh's opponents ran into a stacked box 23.5% of the time. That was 8th highest as well. So we know the Steelers ran into 8 heavy boxes a lot. So did their opponents. So maybe that's just a ball control approach. I'm not quite sure on that, to be honest with you. This is crazy. When Cam Hayward was on the field, opponents ran the ball 303 times, okay? Only 3.7 yards per carry. 3.7 yards per carry would be 2nd best in the entire league. There were 109 carries without Cam on the field, and they allowed 5.1 yards per carry, which would be 31st. So the difference of him being on and off the field against the run is either 2nd best or 2nd worst. Which again screams, you better find his replacement or a complement, or what if he gets dinged up? And, oh, by the way, he's pretty awesome. Similarly, with TJ Watt lining up on the defensive left edge to the quarterback's right, obviously, about 95% of his snaps. The Steelers ran to the offensive left, the opposite side, on 59% of their rush attempts against Pittsburgh, the highest rate in the NFL. So that's including interior runs. They didn't run at Watt, is what I'm telling you. But on runs to the Steelers' Watt side, they only gave up 3.2 yards per carry, best in the league. So just think about that. With Hayward on the field, they only allowed 3.7 yards per carry. When they ran at Watt, they only allowed 3.2 yards per carry. You have some monster, big-time run stuffers on this team, and it's not far away from getting just one more or a little better in that regard to being a really, really good run defense. And as I mentioned to start the show, from start to finish, the defense stopped the run quite well this year. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on anything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. As we talked about throughout the year, another reason the Steelers' run defense was really good was they did a remarkable job against rushing quarterbacks. So, scrambles in particular, which are called pass play that turns into a scramble. Quarterbacks on called pass plays only passed the line of scrimmage as a ball carrier 14 times the entire regular season. In 17 games, a pass play turned into a run past the line of scrimmage only 14 times. Fewest in the NFL. That's by design. I mean, that's Lamar and Jaden Daniels and these guys. Only 63 yards allowed and 1 touchdown, and a league low 4.5 yards per scramble. Just 2.2% of dropbacks against Pittsburgh resulted in a scramble, the lowest percentage in the league. And they were the only defense below 3%. Like, they had a much bigger gap from 1 to 2 than anywhere else. So let's talk about some more general stuff here. Their red zone defense finished 13th best, 54%. Okay, I mean, that's not terrible. But their completion percentage allowed in the red zone was better than every defense in the league except New Orleans. So their cover guys really clamped down in the red zone. And I don't think people recognize that, you know. And I don't think their corners are awesome, and I think they'll get better there. But if you're only allowing a 57% completion rate in the red zone, you're cooking. Their defense was also second best on third downs this year behind the Lions. I think that gets forgotten pretty quickly too. Only a 35.3 conversion rate. In the first half of games, Steelers defense allowed an average of 12.1 points. That's 19th. Not great. And I'm sure a lot of you are saying Tomlin doesn't get his team prepared and they got to do better throughout the week. Maybe there's something to that. I'm not going to fight you on it. I mean, that's not great. It's 19th, 12.1 points allowed in the first half of games. But in the second half, they only gave up 8.8 points per game. Only the Bucs, Broncos, and Bears were better. It's pretty good. You only allow 8.8 points in a half of football over a 17-game stretch. You should win a lot of games. Which brings me to one thing, too. And I understand that the defensive staff, Austin, Tomlin included, have been highly criticized. I get it. I'm not criticizing you for criticizing them. But to think that these guys never make adjustments, I hear that all the time in the comments, is crazy. Obviously, there's major halftime adjustments going on here. You know, the numbers back that up. Last couple things I have for you here are Steelers opponents were only successful this year on 2 2-point conversions. That's something that they practice a lot, trust me. And then let's go through final snap counts. Of the defensive linemen, Cam was at 838 snaps. Benton at 671, which I'm glad he's clearly number 2 this year. Ogunjobi at 550. Loudermilk at 255. I could do without that. Adams at 207. Lowry at 159. Your edge guys, your outside linebackers. TJ played 1,002 snaps. Highsmith came in at 592. Herbig at 433. And Smith at 161. Off the ball linebacker. Queen, 1,164. Roberts and Wilson were right next to each other, as you'd imagine. 525 versus 520. Safety, Minka. He was right behind Queen for the league or the team lead in defensive snaps. He came in at 1,158. Elliott with 895, highly successful. KZ with 313 that I wouldn't mind replacing. And Edmonds kind of off the scrap heap. You got 63 snaps out of him. At corner, Porter was also over 1,000, 1,038. Jackson at 832. If you could give those to a UFA or a first-round pick, preferably a UFA from another team, I think you're really cooking then. Bishop played 550. Mixed feelings on that. I think slot needs to be addressed, preferably with a bigger body. Sutton, remember, he was suspended for most of or a high percentage of the season. Played 273, and frankly, quite poorly. Pierre at 207. Trice at 194. And I think his will spike next year. I don't think he'll be the true starter, but I think he'll be very much in the mix and get a spikeage in usage. I think he's playing pretty well. That's been a successful endeavor with Trice. So I hope you enjoyed it. Again, check out all three of these pods together, really digging into the numbers and my commentary on them and why the numbers tell us things about the Steeler defense. And probably unlike the offensive series, you might come away from these three podcasts thinking, oh yeah, that was better than I remember. Where the offense was kind of the opposite, where the numbers, frankly, were a little harsher than the eyeball test. The numbers were quite harsh on offense. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you soon.